Hi guys, it's me Vanessa, aka Angel Analea. I just wanted to go over something that came to mind last night when I was laying in bed. um, I want to give a little bit of my background first, and then I want to talk about the kids and the parents of psychics and whatnot. Okay, so last night I was laying in bed, and ever since I was little, I've been able to speak with other beings from the other side or whatever. My first experience was when I was 4 years old. There was this old man that came and pushed me on the swing and taught me how to swing, how to do your feet and everything. And so I went home and I told my mom one day, I was like, there was this old man I met at the park, and he taught me how to swing. And she got on to me and she's like, hey, that's not safe. You shouldn't be speaking to a man that you don't know. Da, da, da. I was like, well, he was really nice, he helped me, learn how to swing, and he was pushing me. He didn't seem like he was bad or anything. She's like, well, don't be speaking to men like you don't know. I'm like, okay, well. And then maybe a week later, I remember I'm sitting on her lap, and we're going through this photo album, and I'm like, there's a family photo, and I'm like, Mom, that's the guy right there that was pushing me on the swing. She's like, oh, well, that's not possible. I'm like, well, why? She's like, well, if that's the case, then what's his name? I was like, well, his name was Bob. And she's like, how do you know that? She got really mad at me, And I was like, okay, well, that's what he told me. She's like, well, go to your room, you shouldn't be telling lies and da-da-da-da, right? I'm like, well, I got really frustrated, and I was like, I was 4, so I was like, I really didn't understand what she was meaning. She's like, well, it's not possible. I'm like, well, why not? She's like, you're lying. And I'm like, I'm not lying. She's like, so I got really frustrated, and I got angry. And I says, I'm not effing lying. And she's like, I got in trouble. Needless to say, I got a little bit of tap on my booty and sent to my room. And then I guess she felt bad later on. She comes and grabs me. She's like, Vanessa, you shouldn't be telling fibs like that. I was like, well, Mom, I'm not lying. She's like, well, how did you know? I said, well, because he told me. And she's like, well, that's not possible. I was like, well, why? But she's like, well, you probably won't understand what this is, but she's like, he's dead. I'm like, and I didn't understand then, and I didn't think to question her any further. Well, as time progressed, my mom was always into the psychics and everything, and she would call and get her little readings done or whatever. And one time she had this psychic tell her, she's like, one of your children has extraordinary abilities, and she's like, maybe you should look into not being so dismissive of her abilities, rather than use them as a form of endearment and try to progress it to see what she can do. My mom kind of just counted that, and so what came to mind last night was my mom used to go to work, and she would drive an hour to her job, and I would go with her sometimes, and there would always be this tree, this big tree, and I was like, Mom, I would tell her, I was probably 6 or 7 at this point, and I was like, Mom, you know what? I see a little girl at that tree. Something bad happened to her. And she's like, oh, really? She just kind of well, what's she look like? She would feed into it a little bit, but she wouldn't, she wouldn't tell me I'm okay, or what made you say that, or she wouldn't question me or ask me pretty much any details. She's just kind of well, what does she look like? And I'm like, well, Mom, she's a little blonde girl, but I think something bad happened to her because she has blood on her and stuff, right? And every time we come by that tree, I would feel that girl, and I would see her, right? And if you're any type of psychic, whenever you're driving, or for instance, or something, it's not all the time, but when you're driving, for instance, or you get these feelings, and sometimes you get visions, right? So I didn't really understand it at the time. So my mom, like, finally a few years later, we was driving by that same tree, and I was like, Mom, that girl is still there. She's like, well, you know what, Vanessa? She's like, I'm gonna tell you what happened with that little girl. She's like, it was a long time ago, and that little girl was murdered, and that's where the older man put her body to rest, and they found her like a few years later by accident. I'm like, well, why couldn't you have told me this like a long time ago? Just say something had happened to her. She's like, well, I didn't figure you'd understand. Which brings me to the point of, okay, say you're a parent and you have a child that is gifted in one form or another. Maybe you're not and they are, or children these days are more ascended than a lot of us. So with that being said, whenever your child comes to you and tells you something about they see this or they see that, indulge in them. Ask them what they see. Find if there's any credibility and see how you can guide them on that. Because if I had had that when I was younger, I probably would have been more progressed and I wouldn't have been so much introverted and unsure of myself and my abilities back then. So with that being said, to the parents of the children that have gifts, the sky is the limit. Don't dismiss the child's capabilities. Don't dismiss the child's capabilities just because you don't understand it. Try to give it credibility. See if it's just a friend they're talking to, for instance, because I have quite a few of those, and yeah, I was always my imaginary friend when actually it was spirits and whatnot. So that being said, I guess I just kind of wanted to say for all you mediums out there that if you don't understand it now, you will understand it later. Sometimes being clairtangent is hard to grasp what's going on, especially in the moment when you're feeling the whole scenario happen like as if you're in it. So with that being said, don't feel bad about yourself for being different. If your child is different, don't punish them for being different. Embrace them for who they are and what they uniquely are capable of. That being said, if you guys relate to this or you guys have any insights on or experiences that have happened to you, I would love to hear it in the comments. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm open to positivity, love, and light, so please keep comments to yourself if you're negative in nature, and much love, you guys.